Marcus Dalton stood at the cabin window, his calloused hands gripping the rough sill. Outside, his 3 children played in the dusty yard under the late May sun. Emma, 9 years old, directed her brothers in some elaborate game only she understood. Thomas, 7, followed her instructions with patient devotion. Little Sarah, barely 5, clapped her hands and spun in circles. They played alone. They always played alone. A mile away, the town of Cedar Bend rose against the prairie sky, close enough that Marcus could hear the church bells on Sunday mornings, close enough to see smoke from chimney fires, close enough to break his heart. The children had invented their own world because no one else would let them in. Marcus watched Emma adjust Thomas's stick sword, her small face serious with concentration. Their clothes were patched, the fabric sun-faded and worn. Sarah's dress hung a bit too long, let down twice already from Emma's wearing. The hems showed the ghosts of old stitching. He'd done his best with needle and thread. A widower's best, clumsy and slow. The children didn't seem to notice their poverty. Or maybe they did, and simply bore it the way they bore everything else, with quiet acceptance that made Marcus's chest ache. Last Sunday's memory rose unbidden. His children had approached a group of town children playing near the general store. Emma had smiled hopefully. Thomas had held out a smooth stone he'd found, offering to share. The town children had pointed and laughed at Thomas's trousers, inches too short above his ankles, at Sarah's mismatched stockings, at something indefinable that marked them as different, lesser, unworthy. His children had walked back to the wagon in silence. Emma's shoulders had been very straight. Thomas had put the stone in his pocket. Sarah had climbed into the wagon bed without being told. Marcus had driven home with his jaw clenched, helpless rage burning in his throat. Now he watched the setting sun cast long shadows from the homestead toward town, reaching but never touching. The prairie grass bent in the breeze, all motion pointing toward Cedar Bend, like some cruel compass. Hannah would have known what to do. His wife had possessed a gift for people, for smoothing rough edges and opening doors. 3 years in the ground, and he still reached for her wisdom daily. 3 years of raising children alone. 3 years of watching them grow more isolated. The cabin door creaked open behind him. Emma's voice, tentative and small, cut through his thoughts. "Papa, why don't the town children like us?" Marcus turned. His daughter stood in the doorway, her face streaked with dust, her brown eyes searching his. Thomas and Sarah crowded behind her, waiting. He had no answer that wasn't a lie. "Go wash up for supper," he said finally, his voice rougher than intended. Emma nodded slowly. She understood what he couldn't say. She was 9 years old, and already learning that some questions had no good answers. As the children filed inside, Marcus looked back toward town one last time. The distance remained exactly the same as always. 1 mile. Might as well be 1,000. Anna Whitlow swept her boarding house porch with steady, practiced strokes. Saturday morning in Cedar Bend brought the usual bustle wagons arriving with the week's supplies, families shopping, neighbors exchanging news. From her vantage point, Anna saw everything. The boarding house sat at the town's social crossroads. Merchants stayed when passing through. Circuit preachers rested between churches. Families landed here between old homes and new. Information flowed through Anna's establishment like water through a sieve, and she caught what mattered. This morning, she watched Marcus Dalton's wagon roll down Main Street. The widower sat hunched on the driver's bench, his 3 children squeezed together in the back. Emma held Sarah on her lap. Thomas gripped the wagon's side, eyes downcast. Marcus moved through his errands with focused speed, into the general store, out again, to the feed shop, loading quickly. His children trailed behind like ducklings, quiet and careful. Anna noticed what others did too, though they pretended not to see. Mrs. Henderson pulled her daughter aside as the Daltons passed. The girl had been playing hopscotch, but her mother found sudden urgent business elsewhere. Two other mothers did the same, casual as breathing, creating invisible walls with their bodies. Marcus's jaw tightened. He noticed. How could he not? Anna leaned her broom against the porch rail and watched. The Dalton children weren't wild or rude. They said please and thank you to shopkeepers. They stayed close to their father. They didn't beg for candy or run through stores. They were simply poor and motherless. Two strikes that somehow added up to exile. Mrs. Henderson's voice drifted across the street. She stood with Mrs. Carlson near the mercantile, their heads bent together in that particular way women have when sharing judgments disguised as concern. Chakrai stum. Those Dalton children are half wild, Mrs. Henderson said, not bothering to lower her voice much. Marcus does his best, poor man, but they need a mother's hand. The girl's hem is coming undone and the boys have no polish at all. Charity case. Mrs. Carlson agreed, though I suppose it's not the children's fault. Not their fault, Anna thought bitterly. But they pay the price anyway. She knew this pattern. Knew it bone deep from her own experience. When her husband died 7 years ago, she'd felt the town's sympathy curdle into uncomfortable distance. Widows unsettled people. They reminded everyone that loss waited around any corner. Then Sarah McKenna, a rancher's wife, had invited Anna to Quilting Circle. One invitation. One person willing to validate her place in the community. Everything had changed after that. Anna watched Marcus's wagon leave town, dust rising behind the wheels. The children sat close together. Sarah's head on Emma's shoulder, leaving quickly, returning to their isolation. The thought that had been forming all morning crystallized into decision. Destined in car. She'd been planning a spring picnic for local children. She'd mentioned it to a few families. Gauged interest. Started making lists. Now she knew exactly where to start. Marcus Dalton's children would be the first she invited. If she, Anna Whitlow, respected boarding housekeeper, woman of standing, publicly validated those children, others would follow. She knew how communities worked. One person's acceptance could break isolation's hold. Adults set the tone. Children mirrored what they saw. Anna picked up her broom and resumed sweeping, her mind already planning. She'd drive out to the Dalton homestead tomorrow. Sunday. When they'd be home. Make the invitation direct and impossible to refuse. Loneliness only needed one person to break it. She intended to be that person. Sunday afternoon lay quiet over the homestead. Marcus had finished the week's washing, his children's clothes hanging on the line like flags of surrender to poverty. The fabric showed every patch, every careful mend. He was considering whether to attempt fixing Emma's good dress, the one with the torn hem Mrs. Henderson had. Noticed when he heard the wagon approaching, visitors were rare. Visitors on Sunday were unheard of. Marcus stepped onto the porch. Squinting against the sun, a familiar wagon rolled toward him, driven by a woman in a sensible dark dress and bonnet. Anna Whitlow, the boarding house keeper. His chest tightened with instant wariness. Had something happened in town? Was there trouble behind him? The cabin door creaked. 3 faces appeared at the window. Pressed against the glass, his children's curiosity overcame their usual caution. Anna pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down with brisk efficiency. Remainda de sephir. She carried a basket over one arm, and her expression was businesslike, but not unkind. Mr. Dalton, she said, nodding. I hope I'm not intruding on your Sunday rest. Mrs. Whitlow? Marcus came down the steps, confusion warring with automatic courtesy. Is everything all right? Quite all right. Anna's eyes flicked to the window where his children watched. In fact, I've come with an invitation. she stated it plainly, without preamble or apology. She was having a picnic next Saturday for local children. Games. Food. A chance for the young ones to play together. His three were the first she was inviting. Marcus felt the words hit him like stones. A picnic. With other children. In town. Mrs. Whitlow. I appreciate the thought. But he glanced at the clothesline, at his children's patched garments flapping in the breeze. We're not really set up for socializing. The children's clothes aren't, that is. They don't have. Children don't care about clothes. Mr. Dalton. Anna's voice was gentle but firm. They care about cake and games. Come at noon. They might be laughed at. The words came out harsher than intended. They've been hurt enough already. Then it's time for that to change. Anna met his eyes steadily. I'm starting with your children because they deserve better than isolation. Will you come? Behind him. Marcus heard the cabin door open. Small footsteps on the porch. Emma's voice. Barely above a whisper. A picnic. Papa. He turned. All three children stood there, hope written so clearly on their faces it physically hurt to see. Emma's eyes shone. Thomas gripped his sister's hand. Sarah bounced on her toes. They wanted this. Wanted it desperately. Anna had known exactly what she was doing, making the invitation where his children could hear, making it impossible to refuse without crushing them. Come at noon, Anna repeated. She climbed back into her wagon, not waiting for his formal acceptance. My boarding house garden. Next Saturday. She drove away before Marcus could muster any more protests. The children crowded around him. Questions tumbling over each other. Could they really go? Would there be other children? What should they wear? Sarah tugged his sleeve, asking if there would truly be cake. Marcus looked toward town. The same distance as always. But Anna Whitlow's wagon was already halfway there, carrying his decision with her. The first real summer breeze stirred the prairie grass, bending it all toward Cedar Bend. Yes. Marcus heard himself say, We'll go. Emma threw her arms around his waist. Thomas grinned wider than Marcus had seen in months. Sarah spun in a circle, clapping. Marcus held his daughter and watched the wagon disappear into the distance. God help us, he thought. God help us all. The days crawled past like wounded animals. Monday felt like 3 days compressed into one. Tuesday stretched longer. By Wednesday, Marcus thought Saturday might never arrive. His children vibrated with anticipation. Emma asked questions constantly. What time was noon? Exactly. How long would the picnic last? Would there be girls her age? Marcus didn't have answers. He had only growing dread. Thursday night. He sat at the kitchen table with needle and thread after the children had climbed to the loft. Emma's best dress lay across his lap, the torn hem gaping. His rough, work-hardened hands struggled with the delicate work. Hannah had made this dress 4 years ago. Emma had been 5 then. The fabric fresh and new. Now it showed the wear of 2 younger sisters waiting their turn. Marcus squinted in the lamplight, trying to make his stitches small and even. His fingers felt too large, too clumsy. He pricked himself twice, cursed under his breath. Started over. The dress had to be perfect, or as close to perfect as his limited skills allowed. Upstairs, Thomas's voice drifted down. Papa, what if they laugh at us again? The question pierced deeper than any needle. Marcus set down his sewing and climbed the ladder to the loft. His children lay in their shared bed, 3 heads on 1 pillow. Emma had her arms around her siblings, Then we'll come home," Marcus said quietly. He sat on the edge of the bed. "And we'll still have each other. Mrs. Whitlow seems nice," Emma offered. "She invited us special." "She did." Marcus smoothed Sarah's hair. "That means something." "Does it mean we're good enough now?" Thomas's voice was small. The question hung in the darkness. Marcus had no good answer for that either. "It means one person sees your worth," he said finally. "Sometimes that's where everything starts." He tucked them in, kissed each forehead, climbed back down. The dress waited. He picked up the needle and resumed his work. Across town, Anna Whitlow sat at her own table, making lists. Which families to invite, what food to prepare, how to arrange activities so Marcus's children would be included from the start. Which any day dare sa. She'd learned long ago that inclusion required strategy. Good intentions weren't enough. You had to plan for belonging the way you planned. For harvest, careful preparation, proper timing, steady work. She wrote out a menu. Lemonade and sandwiches. 2 cakes. 1 chocolate and 1 vanilla. Cookies shaped like stars. Food abundant enough that no child would feel competition or scarcity. Games next. Relay races and teams. She'd assign the teams herself, making sure Emma, Thomas, and Sarah were distributed among willing partners. Tag, but the gentle kind. Maybe sack races if she could find enough burlap. And Orena Foss. She thought of her niece Rebecca, a kind girl of 12 who loved everyone easily. She'd ask Rebecca to befriend Emma particularly. Children often took their cues from older children as much as adults. Minadi, Adobine. Anna sealed her lists away and looked out her window toward the dark prairie. Igforin reach no. Somewhere out there. Marcus Dalton was probably worrying himself sick. She understood when you'd been hurt. Hope felt dangerous. But sometimes danger was worth the risk. Friday night arrived. Marcus laid out his children's clothes with military precision, Emma's mended dress, Thomas's least-patched trousers and a shirt Marcus had scrubbed until his knuckles bled, Sarah's best pinafore, let down as far as it could go. He'd even attempted to fashion a ribbon for Sarah's hair from an old scrap of fabric. You can undad Dienfried. It looked pitiful compared to what town girls wore, but it was something. The children went to bed early, too excited to sleep. Marcus lay awake listening to their whispers in the loft, hearing their hope, their fragile dreams. Tomorrow would either heal them or break them further. He prayed first time in months he'd really prayed that Anna Whitlow knew what she was doing. Marcus insisted they arrive exactly at noon. Not early. Not late. Punctuality was dignity he could control. The wagon rolled into Cedar Bend under brilliant Saturday sunshine. Emma sat rigid beside him, her mended dress smoothed over her knees a dozen times already. Thomas had slicked his hair with water. Sarah wore her crooked ribbon like a crown. Anna's boarding house came into view. The side garden had been transformed. Blankets spread across the grass, tables laden with food, ribbons strung between posts, fluttering in the breeze. Marcus's hands tightened on the reins. It's beautiful. Emma breathed. Anna appeared on the porch before they'd even stopped. She wore a welcoming smile and came down the steps with purposeful warmth. Right on time, she said, as if their arrival was the most natural thing in the world. Children, I'm so glad you're here. She rested her hand on Emma's shoulder as they climbed down. That simple touch steady, grounding kept Marcus from turning the wagon around. Other families began arriving. The Hendersons. The Carlsons. The Mitchells with their 4 boys. Marcus noticed the glances. The whispered exchanges. Parents seeing the Daltons and registering surprise. Anna's hand stayed on Emma's shoulder. "Emma," Anna said clearly, loudly enough for others to hear. "I need someone responsible to help organize the relay races. Would you be willing?" Emma's eyes went wide. "Yes, ma'am." "Excellent. And Thomas?" Anna turned to his son. "Could you help me carry the lemonade pitchers? They're quite heavy." "Yes, ma'am," Thomas said, standing straighter. "And Sarah? What a lovely ribbon. Did you tie it yourself?" Sarah beamed. "Papa made it. He did beautiful work." Sauer. Anna caught Marcus's eye briefly. Then she was moving, drawing his children into the center of everything, making them helpers rather than guests, making them essential. Marcus stood at the garden's edge, uncertain where to position himself. Other fathers gathered in loose groups, discussing crops and weather. No one invited him to join. A girl approached Emma, 12 or 13, with dark braids and a friendly face. "I'm Rebecca," she said. "Manisa, Mrs. Whitlow is my aunt. Do you like books?" Emma nodded shyly. "Me too. I just finished one about a girl who becomes an explorer. Have you read it?" Marcus watched his daughter's face transform. That starved look children get when finally offered what they've been craving. "I haven't," Emma admitted. "We don't have many books." "I could lend it to you," Rebecca offered. "If you'd like." Simple as that. One girl's kindness opening a door. 2 boys Thomas's age approached, carrying a ball. They glanced at their mothers, who were watching Anna with cautious interest. The boys seemed to decide something. "Want to play catch?" one asked Thomas. Thomas looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. "Sure," Thomas said, trying to sound casual. Anna moved through the gathering like a conductor, orchestrating inclusion. She praised Sarah's helpfulness in front of other mothers. She mentioned Emma's good manners. She thanked Thomas for his strong arms. Public validation. Deliberate and strategic. Marcus understood what she was doing. She was teaching the community how to see as children, modeling acceptance, so others would follow. The picnic unfolded with increasing ease. Children played. Adults relaxed. Lemonade flowed freely. Anna had made everything abundant, removing any sense of scarcity or competition. For 20 miraculous minutes, it worked. Emma laughed at something Rebecca said. Thomas caught the ball and threw it back with growing confidence. Sarah joined a circle of little girls playing Ring Around the Rosie. Marcus allowed himself to breathe, to hope. Then he heard the tearing sound. Sarah had been spinning in the game when her dress caught on a rough edge of the table. The fabric ripped at the shoulder seam, right where Marcus had carefully patched it 2 days ago. Nakanjanai Jafanveen. Sarah froze mid-spin. The ripping sound seemed to echo across the garden. 2 girls nearby giggled. Not cruelly, just the reflexive response of children who didn't know better, but the sound cut like knives. Sarah's face crumpled. Tears welled in her eyes. Thomas moved toward his sister protectively, that defensive posture Marcus knew too well. Emma saw her father. Saw him take a step forward. Read his intention to gather them up and leave. Her face showed heartbreak, not at the torn dress, but at the loss of this brief belonging. The door closing again just as it had started to open. Every parent in the garden stopped talking. Children paused their games. Everyone watched to see what would happen next. The pattern reasserted itself. The Daltons different. Marked. Failing again. Marcus took another step forward. The silence stretched like taffy pulled too thin. Sarah stood frozen. One hand pressed against the torn shoulder of her dress. Tears streaked her dusty cheeks. The two girls who'd giggled looked uncertain now, realizing their laughter had hurt. They took small steps backward. Thomas positioned himself between Sarah and everyone else. His jaw set in that stubborn line Marcus knew from the mirror. Protecting his sister the only way he knew how. Emma met her father's eyes across the garden. Marcus saw everything in her face, the brief joy dying. The familiar weight of shame settling back onto small shoulders. She'd known this wouldn't last. Had known better than to hope. That knowledge in his 9-year-old daughter's eyes nearly broke him. Marcus moved forward to end this. To gather his children and retreat to their safe isolation. Better to be alone than humiliated. He made it 3 steps before Anna swept past him. She carried her sewing basket, moving with such purpose that people instinctively cleared a path. She reached Sarah and knelt down, examining the torn shoulder with professional interest. "Well now," Anna said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent garden. "This is perfect timing." Sarah hiccuped, confused. "I've been wanting to show the girls my invisible mending stitch," Anna continued, opening her basket. "It's a trick my mother taught me, Sarah. You'll be my model." Everyone gather round. She said it as if this was the plan all along. As if a torn dress was an opportunity, not a disaster. The little girls who'd been playing Ring Around the Rosie hesitated, then moved closer. Curious despite themselves, a few older girls followed. Anna threaded her needle with practiced ease. "The secret is to match your thread exactly to the fabric. See how I'm using this brown thread? It'll disappear right into the dress once I'm done." "Will it be as good as new?" one girl asked. "Better," Anna said firmly. "But today." "Because Sarah will know how strong the mending is. She'll never worry about that spot again." She began stitching, narrating each step. The girls watched, leaning in. Sarah's tears dried as she became the center of attention for skill rather than shame. "Sarah's been such a help today," Anna said, loud enough for the mothers to hear. "Helping the little ones, sharing her toys. You've got a generous heart, child." She tied off the thread and examined her work. There. Good as new. Better. Even the torn dress was mended. But Anna wasn't finished. She stood, addressing the assembled children, with the authority of a general deploying troops. "Now then, I think it's time for cake. But first, I need to tell everyone how impressed I am with the Dalton children." Marcus froze. What was she doing? "Emma has been organizing games like a natural leader," Anna said clearly. "Making sure everyone gets a turn? That's real kindness." Emma's face flushed pink. "Main. And Thomas has been helping the younger boys learn to catch. Patient teaching is a rare gift." Thomas stood straighter. "And Sarah shares everything she has, even when she doesn't have much. That's true generosity." Anna's eyes swept across the parents watching. The mothers who'd pulled their children away, the fathers who'd excluded Marcus from their circles. "These are good children." Anna said, "Polite, helpful, kind. Any family would be blessed to have them as friends." She said it without apology, without pleading, just stating fact with the weight of her social standing behind it. Mrs. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Carlson looked at her hands. Rebecca, Anna's niece, broke the moment. "Emma. Want to be partners for the relay race?" Emma glanced at her father. Marcus managed a nod. "Yes." Emma said softly, "I'd like that." The boys with the ball called to Thomas. "Teams of 3. You're with us." Sarah's playmates circled back, resuming their game as if the tear had never happened, because in Anna's hands, it truly hadn't mattered. Marcus watched the pattern shift, watched Anna's deliberate validation reshape how the community saw his children. She nor I, one person's acceptance breaking isolation's hold, exactly as she'd promised. Children followed Anna's lead because children always mirrored adults. They saw her warmth, her genuine praise, her lack of judgment, and they followed. Laughter rose again. Games resumed. But different now. Marcus's children integrated rather than isolated. Playing with others rather than watching from outside, Anna passed Marcus on her way to the cake table. She didn't stop. Didn't make a show of it. Just murmured as she went by. Adults set the tone. Mr. Dalton. The children just follow. Marcus stood at the garden's edge, watching his daughter laugh with Rebecca, watching his son catch the ball and throw it back, watching Sarah spin without fear, watching the bridge build itself before his eyes. The afternoon unfolded, like a flower opening to sun. What had been tentative became genuine. The children's laughter lost its careful edge. Emma and Rebecca sat together on a blanket, heads bent over a shared book. Rebecca pointed to passages, Emma listening with fierce attention. Two other girls joined them, asking questions, including Emma naturally in their circle. Marcus heard Emma's voice. Stronger now. I like stories about brave people. People who do hard things. Me too, Rebecca said. That's why I like this book. The girl doesn't wait to be rescued. She rescues herself. The other girls nodded agreement. Emma belonged to this conversation, belonged to this circle. Thomas had joined a game of tag with 5 other boys. They ran shrieking across the garden, dodging adults and tables. Thomas was fast farm work had made him strong, and the other boys respected it. Nice catch, one boy said when Thomas tagged him. You're quick, Thomas replied. Grinning, simple exchanges. Boys being boys. Nothing remarkable except that Thomas had never had this before. Sarah and 3 little girls played with Anna's set of wooden animals, creating elaborate stories. Sarah's voice carried her narrative with confidence. And then the horses saved the chickens from the storm, she announced. Because friends help each other. The other girls nodded solemnly. Moving their animals accordingly, Marcus noticed the mothers watching. Really watching now. Seeing what Anna had seen. His children weren't half wild or ill-mannered. They were simply children who'd been given a chance. Mrs. Henderson approached her son, who played with Thomas. She watched them for a moment, then did something Marcus hadn't expected. She walked over to him. Marcus braced himself, unsure what was coming. Your boy has good manners, Mr. Dalton. Mrs. Henderson said. Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Real good manners. Marcus found his voice. Thank you, ma'am. I do my best. It shows. She paused, choosing words carefully. Perhaps Thomas and my James could play together sometime, if that would be all right with you. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was acknowledgement, recognition, a door opening. That would be kind of you. Marcus managed. His throat felt tight. Mrs. Henderson nodded and moved away. Marcus stood rooted, the moment washing over him like rain after drought. Anna appeared beside him, carrying a pitcher of lemonade. She refilled his cup without asking. Small steps, she said quietly, but steps forward. You did this. Marcus's voice was rough. I just showed them what was already there. Anna smiled slightly. Your children's worth was never in question. People just needed permission to see it. Why? Marcus asked. Why help us? Anna was quiet for a moment, watching the children play. 7 years ago, when my Henry died, this town didn't know what to do with me. Widows make people uncomfortable. I felt invisible. She turned to him. Then Sarah McKenna invited me to Quilting Circle. One invitation, one person willing to include me. Everything changed after that, so you're paying it forward. I'm doing what should have been done months ago. Anna's voice was firm. Loneliness is cruelty when we have the power to end it. Marcus watched Emma throw her head back, laughing at something Rebecca said. Watch Thomas high-five. Another boy. Watch Sarah be gathered into a hug by her playmates. Adults set the tone. Anna said again. I showed them your children deserve respect. Now watch. Others will follow. She was right. Marcus saw it happening in real time. Parents who'd avoided his family now smiled. Mothers who'd pulled children away now let them play freely. The invisible walls crumbled. Not completely. Not everywhere. Some families still kept distance. Some glances still carried judgment. But enough had changed. Enough doors had opened. The afternoon wore on. Anna served cake, chocolate, and vanilla, generous slices for everyone. The children ate with sticky fingers, sharing frosting and stories, as families began gathering belongings, preparing to leave. Several approached Marcus. Perhaps Emma could visit Rebecca sometime. Anna suggested to him, but loud enough for others to hear. I'd like that very much, Marcus said. 2 boys made plans with Thomas for the following week. We're going fishing at Miller's Creek. Want to come? Thomas looked at Marcus, hope naked on his face. If Mr. Dalton says it's all right. One boy's father added, addressing Marcus directly, including him in the decision, treating him as an equal. That sounds fine, Marcus said. Sarah received an invitation to a birthday party the following month. All the girls are coming, the birthday girl's mother said. We'd love to have Sarah too. Marcus accepted each invitation with quiet dignity, his chest so full he could barely breathe. As the garden emptied, Anna made her final move. She thanked each family for coming, but she made a point of mentioning the Dalton children. Wasn't it wonderful how well everyone played together? She said. The Dalton children fit right in. Such good-hearted youngsters. Cementing the new reality. Making it public and permanent. Marcus helped load his children into the wagon as the sun dropped lower. Preached Ian. Emma chattered about books with Rebecca. Thomas recounted the tag game play-by-play. Sarah fell asleep against her sister, worn out from happiness. Driving home, Marcus gripped the reins and said nothing. He couldn't speak past the knot in his throat. The homestead appeared ahead, small and humble against the darkening sky. But it looked different now. Not exile. Home. Connected home. Tuesday afternoon. Marcus hitched the wagon and drove to town. Not for supplies this time. For something harder. He pulled up in front of Anna's boarding house and climbed down. Tools in hand. He'd noticed her porch step was loose. Noticed it months ago, but never had the courage to offer help. Courage came easier now. Anna answered his knock. Surprise crossing her face. Mr. Dalton. Is everything all right? Yes, ma'am. Marcus gestured to his tools. Noticed your porch steps coming loose. Thought I might fix it, if you'd allow. As thanks. Anna's expression softened. You don't owe me anything. Mr. Dalton. I know that. Marcus met her eyes. But I'd like to help anyway, if it's welcome. She stepped aside. It's very welcome. Marcus worked while Anna tended to boarding house business. They talked as he measured and hammered, the conversation easier than he'd expected. The children have been talking about nothing but the picnic. Marcus said, Emma's already read the book Rebecca lent her. Twice. Rebecca mentioned their becoming fast friends. Anna smiled. She's been asking when Emma can visit. Anytime she'd like. Marcus tested the repaired step. Solid now. I mean that. I know you do. Anna brought out lemonade. They sat on the porch together, watching the town go about its business. Comfortable silence between two people who understood loneliness. You changed everything. Marcus said finally, for my children. For me. I just opened a door. Anna sipped her lemonade. You're the one who had the courage to walk through it. Marcus shook his head. I wanted to run. Nearly did. But you didn't. Anna looked at him steadily. You trusted your children enough to let them try. That took real bravery. The weeks that followed proved her right. A new pattern established itself, different from before. Emma visited Rebecca twice a week. The girls walked arm in arm down Main Street, sharing secrets the way girls do. Other girls joined them sometimes. Emma blossomed under the attention, her laugh coming easier. Thomas played with the Henderson boy and others. They fished at Miller's Creek, explored the woods behind the church, built forts from fallen branches. Thomas came home dirty and grinning, full of stories about his friends. Friends. The word still made Marcus's chest tighten. Her mother. Sarah attended her first birthday party and came home with cake stains on her dress and flowers in her hair. She talked about it for days, reliving every game and song. Not all barriers fell. Some families still kept distance. The Dalton clothes were still patched, their circumstances still humble. Poverty didn't vanish because people were kinder. But the isolation broke. That terrible aloneness that had defined his children's lives that ended. 6 weeks after the picnic, Marcus stood at his cabin window on a Saturday afternoon. The same window, the same view. But everything had changed. His children played in the yard. Not alone this time. Rebecca was there, teaching Emma a clapping game. 2 boys from town played catch with Thomas. Sarah and 3 little girls held a tea party with chipped cups and creek water. Laughter rose. Genuine. Unguarded joy. Marcus watched them and thought of Hannah. She would have loved this. Would have loved Anna's wisdom and kindness. A wagon appeared in the distance. Anna's familiar rig, bringing Rebecca as promised. Marcus opened the cabin door wide. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the humble interior, the worn furniture, the patched quilts, the careful poverty. None of it shameful. Just life, lived with dignity. Anna climbed down, carrying a basket. Brought cookies, she called. Hope that's all right. More than all right. Marcus helped her inside. You're always welcome here. The children swarmed Anna, greeting her with hugs and chatter. She distributed cookies with laughing protests about spoiling supper. Marcus watched from the doorway, his small cabin filled with children's voices, adult laughter, the warmth of belonging. Rebecca caught Emma's hand. Show me your books. You said you had one about horses. And they climbed to the loft, chattering. The boys ran outside, planning their next adventure. Sarah showed Anna her collection of smooth stones. Explaining the significance of each, Anna caught Marcus's eye across the room. Smiled slightly. He smiled back, understanding flowing between them without words. This was what community meant. Not perfection, not wealth. Just people choosing to include rather than exclude, to build bridges rather than walls. One person's acceptance had broken isolation's hold, exactly as Anna promised. And in breaking it, she'd taught Marcus the lesson he most needed to learn. Adults set the tone. Respect flows from those who have it to give. When one person validates the outsider, others follow. The bridge from isolation to belonging is built by those who actively include. Summer settled over the prairie like a warm blanket. Ink housty may cry. The Dalton homestead looked the same from outside, same weathered cabin, same small garden, same patched laundry on the line, but everything had changed. Marcus worked in his garden on a Tuesday afternoon when he heard voices approaching. Thomas and two friends appeared over the rise, fishing poles slung over shoulders. "Papa, can we fish till supper?" Thomas called. "Mind your back before dark," Marcus replied. "Yes, sir." The boys ran off toward the creek, their laughter fading into distance. Marcus straightened, wiping sweat from his forehead. A year ago. Thomas had no friends to fish with. No friends at all. Now his son had companions, invitations, a place in the world beyond their homestead. Emma appeared in the cabin doorway. "Papa, Rebecca's mother invited me to stay for supper at their house Friday. Can I go?" "If you'd like to." I would. Emma hesitated. "Is it really all right? I don't want to impose." Marcus crossed to his daughter, tipping her chin up gently. "You're not imposing, sweetheart. You're being a friend. That's different." Emma smiled. That bright expression that had become common these past months. She hugged him quickly and disappeared back inside, through the open door. Marcus heard Sarah singing to her dolls, a happy tuneless song about princesses and gardens. The little girl who'd once played in sad silence now filled the cabin with noise. Saturday arrived with clear skies. Anna's wagon appeared mid-morning, carrying Rebecca as had become their custom. Marcus met them at the door. Anna climbed down with her usual basket. "Brought fresh bread," she said, "and jam from Mrs. Henderson. She asked me to bring it special." That was kind of her. Marcus took the basket. "Tell her thank you. You can tell her yourself Sunday. She mentioned hoping to see you at church." Marcus blinked. He'd stopped attending months ago, feeling the weight of judgment too heavy to bear. "I might do that." "You should." Anna's voice was gentle. "You belong there as much as anyone." The girls ran off to play. Anna and Marcus sat on the porch, watching the children in the yard. Thomas and his friends arrived, joining the games in Chtas Ozanibmoskirta. Sarah organized everyone into teams for some elaborate contest only she understood. "They're happy," Anna observed. "They are." Marcus felt the truth of it settle in his chest. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to you letting them be happy," Anna corrected. That took trust. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found friendship in unexpected places. "I've been thinking," Marcus said slowly, "about what you said. Adults setting the tone." "Yes, I want to do what you did." He looked at her. "Pay it forward, like you said. There's a family new to town. The Johnsons. They've got 4 children and not much else. I see how people look at them." Anna smiled. "What did you have in mind?" "Thought I might invite them to supper. Let their children play with mine. Show them they're welcome." "That's a fine idea. Mr. Dalton, Marcus, he said, "Hey, I think we're past formalities, don't you?" Marcus, then? Anna's eyes were warm. "And I'm Anna." The afternoon wore on. More children arrived, friends of Emma's. Boys looking for Thomas. Little girls calling for Sarah. The yard filled with games and laughter. Marcus watched from his porch. The same porch where he'd stood so many times in lonely silence, but not lonely anymore. As the sun dropped lower, families came to collect children. Parents exchanged pleasantries with Marcus, making plans for future visits, natural and easy. As if it had always been this way. Mrs. Henderson arrived for her son. She paused at the porch steps. "James has been talking about Thomas all week," she said. "He's a good influence, patient with the younger boys. Thomas speaks highly of James, too." Marcus meant it. "Perhaps we could have your family to Sunday dinner sometime, if that would suit. An invitation to their home, to their table." "We'd be honored," Marcus said quietly. She nodded and left, her son chattering beside her about the afternoon's adventures. Anna prepared to leave as twilight settled. Rebecca hugged Emma goodbye, promising to visit again soon. "Thank you," Marcus said as Anna climbed into her wagon. "For everything. Thank you for trusting me." Anna gathered the reins. "And for learning the lesson." "Like what lesson?" "That loneliness only needs one person to break it. Now you're that person for someone else." She drove away, leaving Marcus standing in his doorway. His children came inside, dirty and happy and talking over each other about the day's events. Emma set the table while Thomas washed up. Sarah climbed into Marcus's lap, content and sleepy. Marcus held his youngest daughter and looked around his cabin. The same humble space, patched quilts, worn furniture. Nothing fancy, but filled now with laughter and life and belonging. He thought of Hannah, wished she could see their children now, see them thriving, loved, connected to community. She would have loved Anna's wisdom, would have understood what Marcus now knew in his bones. The bridge from isolation to belonging is built by those who actively include, by people who choose to see worth where others see poverty, by individuals willing to validate the outsider until others follow. By Tao Di Hin Dai. One person's acceptance can break isolation's hold. Anna had been that person for his family. Now Marcus would be that person for others. The cycle of kindness continuing, spreading like light from one lamp to another. Marcus kissed Sarah's forehead and called his other children to supper. Dain Fawn. Through the open door, warm evening air drifted in. The distance to town remained exactly the same, but the gap had disappeared completely.